Hello Grizzlies. I'm sure you've all seen one of my most recent videos that went viral, 170 odd thousand views in a few days. And of course the GB News interview I did, that's up to 1.2 million as well. All about Paul and I crossing the English Channel in a 9-foot dinghy, unsupported, undetected, launching at night and then hitting the beach in Kent with our little stowaway Gary. A successful pulling down the pants of British Border Force. But you might not know, that's not the only time we've been across to the migrant camps in Calais, France. Been there 3 times. 2 of them as main missions. One when we came back on the dinghy. One was a scouting mission. And then another one where we went across, immersed ourselves in the jungle camp back there in Calais. So to fill in the gaps in between what you saw on my main video and the interview on GB News, I've put a collection together, all the photos and videos, raw footage, and a bit of commentary from myself of one of those other trips. And it's a really interesting take on it. It's coming from an angle where we weren't affiliated to any organisation, any agenda, any news group, or anything. It was just for our own adventure and our own inquisitive nature. And I will warn you that some of the footage is an eye-opener. I mean, the state of the place that we saw, that we were living in amongst them, was pretty diabolical. You're going to see it for yourselves. And I've actually unearthed some footage that I hadn't seen for a while. I was wearing a little secret camera while we were out there. So some of the footage is photos and videos from phones, but then some of it is from this little secret camera I had. And I hadn't seen this for a while. So I pulled it out and watched it, and I was like, ah, yes, I remember that now. And some of it is pretty shocking when we go into a gymnasium, which was owned by a local construction industrial firm. It was their gym on site, and they'd gone in, they'd broken in there. You can see the entry points as me and Paul go in there. Fire, damage all on the outside. Where they'd broken in and they'd commandeered it, created camps in there. And how people weren't dying in there daily is just beyond belief. Smoke inhalation and just the insanitary conditions they were living in. You're going to see the footage. It's a real eye-opener and pretty shocking. So we've thrown that all together with stuff of the wider camp where we were living in, the beer cans and all that carnage that was going on. Makes really interesting viewing, and you can see what's really happening and has been happening for years out there in the camps in Calais and the state of play on the ground. Welcome to the jungle.
In the jungle for about an hour now. Seems to be a lot more traffic, trucks coming past, guys starting to walk around us. It's been quiet up until now. There seems to be a lot more men walking around. I think they're on their way back from trying to get on the trucks. Also, I think they're coming back from getting the free food. The sun's gone down, the rain's started, it's getting dark, it's a bit edgier. As Lee said, there's a lot more people going back and forth, a lot more trucks. We're going to stick it out. The sun's going down now, it just started to rain as well. We're underneath the tarpaulin. It's got recent activity and sleeping tents and built up dwellings, so we're going to stay here till dark. Who knows, we might be able to get one of these trucks going past. So we're in the jungle, we're in a 2-man tent. It's a bit damp, there's lots of moving outside. You can hear some rats scurrying around, searching for the food. The tent that you saw over our right shoulder, when we sat on the pallet, we identified as the tent we were going to come in. Came back, it doesn't look as if it's been touched, so therefore we are now in that tent. The plan is to obviously get up early in the morning. We've set alarms for 0600. We can get up before dawn breaks. Get up, make a withdrawal, and get back into a safe area before obviously they realise we slept through last night. And as we said yesterday, fingers crossed, the guys whose tent this is, they won't come back tonight. We think they've gone back to the UK, or got over to the UK, and they won't be coming here tonight. Fingers crossed. We're committed, so we're going to stay here tonight.
This is tramp face back inside the jungle that we slept in. This is the aftermath of everybody clearing out, ransacking everything and moving to a different spot. As you can see, everything's just been ditched. Rubbish, clothing, tents, anything that they have been given, strewn around. You see quite a modern tent as well. There's a few people in there, just left. And that scene there, I can't even begin to tell you how much clothes, rubbish, materials have just been ditched and left. Now we are just next to the gymnasium, which became the new jungle. It's also been cleared out. As you walk through, you can see all the cans, litter, rubbish piled up outside. Some people living near the stove. Leather seat, nice. And go inside. Looks like trophies on the end, a little bar, so probably a sports function suite for the industrial units close by. Table tennis table, and may not be visible through the camera, but apart from the amount of clothes you can see, the other thing in high volume is the cans of beer. It means cans of beer everywhere. Again, this place has just been left as it is. We're not taking anything with them, apart from the odd thing that they'd use in the other place. Everything else has just been left for somebody else to clear up.
The church. The church?
Yeah, I know church. Yeah. No. It's have a church here. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. And Salam Church, I don't know what you're talking about. But
no. The
church here.
Church here.
Yeah, it's have. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's there. When you're out, you go this way, you see the cross. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Where's everyone going? What? Where's everyone going?
Two days ago, Paul and I entered the gym from this angle. At the time, it was still full of people, with fires inside the gym. And we asked where the church was. This is what's been left. In case you're wondering, the people who have left this place and all their belongings haven't moved to another country or another life or whatever. They've moved 500 meters down the road to a different spot to do exactly the same. And all this stuff is provided to them by charity.
In all of the interviews I do about our little trip to Calais, when I say We didn't want to go there as reporters and just tell people we were there to see what's going on. We wanted a cover story, a different reason of why we were there rather than just to see what was going on. Just so we could blend in a little bit more, and like we found with our homeless projects, you get accepted a little bit more. Not accepted as in you're part of them, but they relax a bit more when you spend a lot of time with them and they're like, well, they're not just here to grill us. Story's going to naturally come out, it's human nature. We needed some kind of backstory to justify why we were there living homeless. Because, of course, we couldn't pretend to be migrants, obviously. And, of course, when they hear us talking, they're going to know we're not French and homeless. And the story we come up with was that we were deserters from the French Foreign Legion. And when Paul first said this to me, I was like, no chance. Nobody's ever going to believe this. What a ridiculous story. So far-fetched. And he had the full... I was throwing questions into him, and he was batting them away. He'd already thought about the answers to them. And in short, the story was that we were born in Hong Kong to Welsh and Irish parents, so we had passports. We joined the Foreign Legion, didn't like that, so we jumped the wall, and now we were on the run from them and trying to make our way back to the UK and eventually Ireland. And of course, when you join the Legion, they take all your documents off you, I'm led to believe. I've worked with French Foreign Legion guys when I was in the Marines, but they take all your documents off you, an identity, give you a new identity if you pass their training. So therefore, we jumped the wall, we didn't have anything. So we couldn't just hop on the ferry with our British/Irish passports, toughing it out, living homeless, northern French coast, until we could get word to London, find some papers for us and give us safe passage across the channel. And it's brilliant that I happen to have this camera footage, a secret camera, of when we got questioned about this. When we went to a food drop-in centre camp, we were managed to roll it out and it worked. They believed us. On this first instance where the camera captures it, they go and get us food. But we went back there the next day again and there were more people coming in quizzing us. And we said to this young French lad, we gave him the cover story, and they were saying, why don't you go to the embassy in Paris? Paul was like, we just escaped from Paris. We can't go back there. We'd researched it. The Legion do have a camp in Paris. So it was a credible story. And this young lad was like, of course, they're deserters. Of course they can't go back to Paris. Of course they're here with no documents. Come in, guys. Come eat. Come eat. So the first time they brought the food out to us, and then for the rest of the week, they welcomed us in. So it is pretty sweet that I got this footage of them. Because when I tell this story in interviews, there will be skeptics out there. I'm a massive skeptic when I watch podcasts and interviews and things like that. Going, really? Yeah, all right. They had that story, but did they really have to roll it out? Well, lo and behold, I dug through my footage and found one of the instances where we did roll it out.
Oui, vous, it's not possible enter the center. No possible. Yes. It's not possible. Yes. Possible. Not possible. Why not? Why? Because we here yesterday.
Yes, but it was a mistake from the people because it's not for association or everything like this.
No, we're not association. We are Legionnaires, French Legion.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we live homeless in Calais.
Try to go
Yes,
back
but
to...
some people here told us that we are from a no border association and it's not possible to accept this association here.
We're
You
not from
We're
not from
No problem. Outside the center, we can speak with people, not in inside. Not possible in.
we're not from no
No,
border.
we don't want to speak
Yes,
to.
but some people told us that we are from this
We just speak to them.
So yesterday we didn't speak, we just went in, had food and leave.
Yes, but I told you that some people told us that you are from a no border association.
Something I've spoken about in a lot of my interviews is NGO, non-government organisation groups. So think of Red Cross, charities and organisations who aren't affiliated to the government directly, but they go into these places, these hotspots around the world, they provide some sort of service. So there's a lot of these about, as you can imagine. And a lot of them have honest intentions in the fact that they just want to give help on the ground. Right? You might question, of course, higher up, should they be doing that? Is it encouraging it, the sort of illegal migration, facilitating it? Because then they are feeding them, they are allowing them to stay in the camps. That is an argument to have. But their intentions on the ground, I've seen, are generally honest. However, there's some there who haven't got such honest intentions. And one of these we came across were called No Borders. And I bring this up in a few interviews, and especially the one on GB News. Patrick really spiked his attention when I said this, that they facilitate the guys across here to come across. They get in there, they obviously provide the help on the ground, But also then they tell them what they can get when they get here. They tell them what to say when they turn up. They tell them how to fill the paperwork in. They tell them exactly what they are entitled to get and the correct legal advice they can get. And the argument for that would be, well, yeah, if they are here, we should be telling them that. And the other argument is, well, no, because that's then going to allow them to bend the truth. If they just come across without any of that preparation, it's going to be honest and say it how it is. But by giving them that information, you're then encouraging them to manipulate it and go, well, okay, well, I do want to get there. They're telling me if I say this or do this, it'll help me a lot more. And if you've come from Central Africa, North Africa, the Middle East, got all the just parachuted into northern France, paid all that money and all that upheaval of crossing all those borders and getting there, you're going to say and do whatever you can to make it easier for you. Pull every trick out of the hat to get to northern France and then go, oh, I'm just going to tell them as it is, and then they might reject me. No, you're going to do whatever it takes. We spoke to some of these groups. They were very suspicious of us because of the activity they're doing naturally, and some of us just point blank refused to speak to us. Unlucky for them, because we'd already spoke to a group of Syrians before these guys turned up, and they'd pretty much told us everything we wanted to know. The guys in the camps had already told us a decent amount of information about them. And actually, when I got home, I Googled them. They got a website, so it's not that hard to work out what their mission is. Their mission statement tells you from the off. There's no two ways about it. They're quite overt about what they want. But obviously they want to be a bit secretive about how they're doing it, who they've got in the organisation there on the ground doing it. And I bring this up in the interviews, and again, there may be a few people out there a bit sceptical about this. But again, it's a good job I dug this footage out, because when we went into one of the food camps, they denied us entry on the second day. They'd seen us the first day, let us go in and eat. Obviously a bit inquisitive about us. We had sort of shamags and hoods up, but you could tell. So there'd been some suspicion, and the second day we got there, boom, they were straight onto us. It's not possible to come in. And then it came out, we've been told by several people that you were from No Borders. And this was like, ooh, well, we've seen a different dynamic here. Because in a lot of the interviews I say that there's different tribes and gangs in these camps. They aren't just one big unified crowd all in it together. They're all warring tribes as well. It's actually happening with the NGOs and the charities as well. They're fighting each other and don't agree with everything that the other ones are doing. And we found this out on the ground, because the people who were giving the food out of the camp were straight on us. So the moment they thought we were part of No Borders, you're not coming in this camp. Which does tell you a little story, that maybe these people in the camp, they don't want them to go to England. Well, that is what it suggests to me. Or at least they don't want them to do it illegally, get into trouble, possibly endanger their lives with the crossings. They didn't want them to talk to No Borders. So that means they completely disagree with what that group is doing. And it was a very interesting dynamic for us to see. Very interesting for us to be accused of being in this No Borders group. So we had to roll the French Foreign Legion story out, of course. Whether they took it completely, all of them, we'll never know. These camps aren't like we see in the UK and maybe what we're told. We think that it's all cohesive unit there. Not only are the people within the camp fighting, the charities are fighting. Although I would say No Borders, it ain't a charity. It's an activist group, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what their official status is. They're an NGO. They're an activist because they're actively breaking the law. They say it in their mission statement. We believe there should be no borders, and we will help people move wherever they want.
And they are not, No Border are not allowed to come into this place.
Okay, yeah, we're not from No Border.
Yes, but
We don't know who they are.
Until yesterday, we didn't even know who No Borders was.
You can come with us, and we just want to eat because we're sleeping in Calais.
By the train station?
where do you sleep?
At the train station.
Yeah.
There's road to the train station?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sometimes there, sometimes by the beach, the huts at the beach.
Yeah,
We've been on the Calais 4 days.
Yeah. So we're trying to get to Ireland. So we've made contact with government. So we're waiting for a letter to see, because we have no paperwork, no ID, so we can't cross until the government's
And what
Irish
do you
government.
want? You want to go in England?
No, Ireland.
Ireland?
Ireland.
But until, because we have no paperwork, because the Legion, they've got our paperwork, our passports. So we've sent a letter to the government, and we're just living
And you
homeless.
go to embassy?
Pardon?
You go to your embassy?
There's no embassy in Calais, so
No,
we
but in Paris.
We
Yeah,
have to leave Paris.
but we can't,
we
because
escaped the Legion.
the police
Can't stay in Paris.
will go back to Legion. So we contact the embassy from the library in Calais, letter. So we wait for a letter back to see if we can have safe passage to Ireland.
Okay.
So we'll be hoping that a family friend comes to Calais to pick us up. But if not, then we hope
We can't speak to the police or the government because we're from.
all toilets empty, no toilet paper, please.
So
Lot of toilet.
they will send us back to the Legion.
And what was really interesting about this footage, I dug up as well, I wrote about it in the book. There's a guy, we saw him everywhere all week, everywhere we went, not just in the camp, when we went back into town to go to the supermarket, just having a look around the different areas, because it's not just that one sort of migrant jungle camp. There was all satellite camps dotted around the city in all different areas, which we wrote about and we captured as well. So when we were doing our rounds and we were walking like 40, 50,000 steps a day, we just see him everywhere, on every corner, just popping out. And we nicknamed him Afghan Hatman, because his little hat on reminded me a bit of the ones who went Afghan. But looking back at this footage, it isn't an Afghan hat. I don't think he's from Afghan. And looking back at the footage, because you get a real close-up of him, I'm really suspicious that this guy wasn't a migrant living in the camp. Because one, he was much older than them all. They were all young, fit men in their 20s. This guy's in his 50s. What's he doing there? Walking around following us. And as you see from the footage running in there, he's obviously been whispering in the ears, charity workers on the camp, because he just stood there looking at us as they're quizzing us. And they're like, oh, somebody's told. And he's there right on their shoulder. I'm thinking, looking back at it, is he Southeast European? Okay, maybe Turkish, the Balkans area, a human trafficker. He's in that camp and he's thinking, I don't want these no borders clowns in here. They're getting them across for free. I want to make a bit of money out of them. This is my competition, trying to drive us out. So looking back at it and thinking about what I wrote in the books about him, that is my strongest conclusion about it. He was part of the human trafficking. He's tapping them up, he's passing the messages, because they're going to be in there. How else are they getting them from the camp to the boats and the trucks and everything else? They've got to have liaison officers and agents, if you like, in the camps. Afghan Hatman, he ain't Afghan, Turkish or from the Balkans, somewhere like that. He's a trafficker. Read the book, you can have a look at him as well and work that out for yourself.
But some people here told us that they know you have no border.
Incorrect. Incorrect. Even if we can't go in to get some bread and water.
You can wait here, we will bring you some food. Okay? Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
One of the boldest moves we made on this trip was when we decided to spend the night sleeping with the Syrian Gang. So a lot of the guys there, we'd met over a few days through the satellite camps. So not in the main jungle area, just the sporadic ones dotted around the perimeter of the main one, who were forming their own little communities. And these guys, they were self-sufficient, had an air of arrogance about them. Compared to the others, they spoke down on the other groups, even the other Syrian gang, which were just round the corner. The loading bay gang, we call them, imaginatively, because they were camped out in a loading bay of a business. And these guys definitely thought they were above them and better. And you could see in the air of how they carried themselves and how they spoke about other people. And it's interesting to note that they were completely self-sufficient. They didn't go to the Salam food camp, they had the footage of going into, want nothing to do with it. They had a group of locals from the activist groups, the charities, who would bring them food. And locals, I don't know if they were affiliated, they might have just been locals helping them. And also one of the girls was Anna. I can't remember if she was Dutch or French. The book will tell you, I know I keep referencing in it, but it will clarify it. She was in a relationship with one of them, Sally. So whether it was just off her own back that she was bringing these supplies, it was very interesting to see their own kitchen set up, fresh eggs there, all fresh produce, and it's been brought to them every day. I'm not saying there's anything against that, just an observation. But it's an interesting point in the wider context as well. They weren't just them that was self-sufficient. There was a lot of little mini economies going on in these camps, which will surprise a lot of people. Also, in the Dunes area, we noticed convenience stores. It sounds mental, doesn't it? Built up with like pallet woods. And we would see the activists and charity groups going in there building these shelters. There was quite bad weather when we were there and it knocked a few of them over, and they go back in with the tools and build them up for them. They built them a convenience store as well. We would then go into town, Paul and I, to get our few cans of lager in the Aldi and the Lidl, nice and cheap. And then we'd witness the guys from the only ones we saw were from the African camps. And that is a point to note really with the drinking that we saw. It isn't all the same there. There are different cultures, different tendencies within them. I do have to point out, I I never saw any of the Syrians drinking, or the Afghanis or the Kurds. It's not to say that they weren't, but they weren't overtly doing it in front of us. Whereas a lot of the Afghan guys, Sudan, Chad, Somalia, places like that, Eritrea, they were openly drinking alongside us as well. A lot of their camps then had that mess we saw with the cans everywhere. And we'd see the guys from these groups in the Aldi Lidl just loading up with big trolleys full of cans. Now, they aren't drinking that themselves. There were 2 or 3 of them on each run. Of course, they're going back and selling it, either through the convenience store or on their own little black market, a bootleg. And there was trade going on. We saw guys selling mobile phones, SIM cards, exchanging things within their groups. Newcomers arriving, of course, with their suitcases, given mobile phones and bits and bobs that they needed. So there was trade going on, and there were mini economies. And from this little area where we befriended the Syrian guys, and we spent a lot of time hanging around with them and just chatting. And here we witnessed arrivals and departures. We would see arrivals turn up. I remember waking up the night we spent sleeping with them on the doorstep. I think I was back in Afghanistan or something. Some Russian era armoured vehicle was rolling towards me. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like rolling thunder. I sort of sat up and looked, and it was new arrivals with their suitcases just come from whatever transport they'd got there on, rolling them along the cobbles. And they'd be greeted by the guy who's standing sentry and welcomed into the little enclave. And departures wise, it was in this area we really got to meet some of the no borders as well. They didn't like us at all. Really give us a wide berth, very suspicious, actively telling the Syrians not to talk to us. Unfortunately for them, we'd already been there a couple of days and already been chatting to the guys and got a lot of stories out of them. We didn't actually see that we would recognise as a trafficker, but I mean, making the association with this group that wants to actively get people across borders, we can assume that they were intermediaries and passing messages and whatever system they had, because we then did witness departures in the evening, especially the night when we slept there. We got to witness them leaving, unfortunately for them coming back. There'd be this big goodbye. It was like men going to war. This last backslapping, shaking hands, and you like euphoria, jubilant. That yes, this is it. We're off now on the last phase, the very last leg, which it would be, because then they've hit the main goal. Oh, thank you. Great. Oh, amazing, guys. We'll see you later, a lot later. Hopefully, you were not going to see us back here again. Unfortunately for this one group that we saw, they came back a couple of hours later. They'd been tear gassed by the French police. They were in a bit of a mess, which obviously wasn't nice to see as a human. They'd obviously been caught. So I'm assuming on that mission, it was trying to get on the trucks. Probably not going to get gassed on the beach. So I'm assuming they've jumped the fence, like we did witness on one of the nights, so sort of loads of them trying to get over the fence, and we nearly got gassed ourselves. So we actually witnessed that first and last, I guess, phase of the illegal crossings of the channel, that very last moment, the last safe moment, as we called in the Marines, before you step over the line into the fire. We built a really good rapport up with these guys over a few days, and they felt comfortable enough to have us around. They fed us a couple of times, told us about their backstories, and it led up to them then being comfortable enough to invite us to spend the night. And it was a piggy in the middle affair. They were all lined out with loads of blankets and sheets along this church doorstep, and we were going to be the piggies in the middle. And we really had to weigh this up. Looking at it on the face of it, we had been there a few days by this point, and we'd normalised it. Same as anything, you look at it beforehand, you weigh up the risks, you get there, you settle into it, you get lay of the land, you get a feel for it, and you relax a little bit. But we had to really take ourselves back to our thoughts before we went there. This could be a setup, easily. We'd been posting on Facebook, on our Tramp Face page. People knew we were doing it as an adventure and raising money from the posts that we do every day for charity. So it wouldn't have been hard, really, to look into that, especially these activist groups. If they're suspicious, you're going to start digging. And of course, the danger is that it's quite obvious, isn't it? It takes one little phone call from the phones that they've all got in a terrorist network. I was serving in the Royal Marines at the time as well. We got a Royal Marine and a Royal Engineer, British here, ripe. They got no security, they got no backup that we know of. They're just wandering around the camp. How much do you want for them? And it don't take a genius to work out what the situation would have been from that. Pretty horrendous thing to be thinking about when you're homeless in the middle of a camp of 2,000 people who aren't your friends. We had to extract ourselves from the camp and have a really good think about it. And the consensus between us was, it's ridiculously dangerous. There's a high chance of it going wrong, and it could be a setup, and we could just be being very naive that they've welcomed us in. But also, what an opportunity this is. We've come here to really get into it, really get immersed in it. And what better chance are we going to have? A group of Syrians have invited us to spend the night sleeping in the middle of them in a migrant camp in France. And we weighed it up, and it wasn't just because it'd be a great story, which it would be. What a thing to pull off and report back and tell everyone about. The overriding one for us was that our own inner appetite for adventure and something just a little bit different and edgy and exciting. That was overriding feelings of risk and danger. And we just decided we wouldn't be able to look each other in the eye again if we'd shit out. We'd have regretted it. So the decision was, we're going to do it. And we did. We built up a good rapport with these guys. We chat to them every day. Some of them wouldn't talk to us and remained suspicious, but their leader, Salih, and a couple of the others really started to talk to us, and we started to talk about their backstories back home, tell them a little bit about ourselves in the French Foreign Legion, which he didn't. Well, he did, but he was like, every now and again he'd drop in. I'm still not sure about you guys. I'm still not sure. Which is 100% fair enough, because we were lying to him. We got friendly, and it really humanized it for me, because we sit across here and we look at it. We look at whatever outlets we are looking at. I try to look at as many as I can if I'm interested in something. And then there's a tendency to just see it one way, potentially see the people there one way, and that is it. And of course it isn't. Nothing is like that. Humanizing of it, I really started to look at them a bit more in depth. And Salih, for example, he was educated. He had a good job back home. He was very presentable, very gentlemanly, friendly. And I started asking about his reasons for coming across. And there were many, whether he told us all of them. And I did sit there and go, do you know what? This guy would bring something to the party in the UK. So you're thinking, well, he would be a credit to his country, in our country, be a credit to our country, integrate into our society. But also then, there was something missing for me as well. With all that in mind, I'm like, yeah, he would. But also, if he's got all that behind him, and I can see it, with spending a little bit of time with him, and he really wants to get to the UK, why not do it the proper way? Why not do it legitimately? Claim asylum in France or Italy, get into the system, and then you'll be able to travel to the UK. Yeah, despite all these things, you've got to ask yourself, why are you doing it by devious means? Even though you've got all that going for you, you're still using underhand tactics to do something illegally. You could play devil's advocate with that and go, if he's willing to do that illegally, what else are they willing to do illegally? And that's a valid argument to have. Of course, the other argument would be he's desperate for maybe family or whatever personal reason it could be, that he really wants to get there and it's the quickest way, and maybe he's got no faith in the systems in the other countries and he wants to get there. And that is an argument, of course. They're both arguments. But I'm sat in the middle going, that's a pretty strong one for me, the fact that he's resorted to these means to do it, and just adds an element of doubt then about it. You have to revert back to, well, it's the law. I do appreciate you've got really strong personal reasons of why you want to go across. That's not the way it works. And you're now going to make it worse for yourself if you get caught trying to do it illegally. And he was wise about the UK and our culture, so it would be easy to fit in our society. And we spoke about it. We used to laugh and joke about TV programs and our culture. He hated Jeremy Clarkson, so I was laughing at that. Not that I'm saying Jeremy Clarkson is our culture, but you know what I mean. He knew about things going on in the UK. There was some sort of controversy about him at the time. Could be at any point in time, couldn't it? And unfortunately, the landscape we've landed in at the minute, if you interrogate and question immigration like I just have, you get branded names and you get all sorts thrown at you. But it's just a legitimate concern. As I pointed out there, it's not a black and white one for me. It's complicated because I liked the guy. I thought he had a lot going for him. That isn't enough, unfortunately. For me, you may disagree. I got to look at it the other side and go, why is he here? Why is he doing it this way? And is he hiding something from me? He would have lied and dealed in deceit and underhanded tactics to get this far. So we're in black and white, but I'm not sold on he's a good guy, just let him in. The world can't work like that. And you'll get labelled for critical questioning like this. And I got friends all over the world, travelled 50 countries in my time on multiple occasions. So I got friends all over the world who still live all over the world, and some of them live in the UK. I know interpreters from Afghanistan that helped us when we were out there in the conflict. 100% they should be allowed to come to this country and allowed to live our life. Put their lives on the line, even more so than me, because I got there for 6 months at a time. And I'd go back a year or so later and they'd be out there still. They've been there since I've been out there, going out on the patrols. Unarmed as well. These guys won't carry weapons. They're just there to interpret. Amazing bravery. And there's a difference in there. There's a difference between that. And I'm not saying nobody should come here. There are people out there who go, nobody should come here. And there are those who go, everybody should come here. I'm in the middle. There's got to be a process. There's got to be something to regulate it. And there is. It's called the law. And we got to stick to it. Speaking to a lot of the guys in there, mostly the activists, to be honest with you, they were up in arms, enraged about this rule where if they'd landed in Greece or Italy, they'd have to go back there once they were processed. So when I'm asking the question, I'm going, we're in France. Most people would love to live here. Why don't you just now report to the French, go into the system, settle in France, year or two's time, boom, get a visa, go across to England. I know they say, oh, it's the language barrier, which I don't really buy fully. I do understand it, of course. A lot of them speak English, and we all speak English. But it's not as if nobody in France speaks English. A lot of people there in the cities are going to speak a good amount of English. But again, that's something you could argue about. That isn't my point, really. My point is they were disgusted by this ruling that they would be sent back to Italy. And to be honest with you, again, playing devil's advocate and trying to look at these things from different points of view, I probably wouldn't want to go back to Italy if I was from Central Northern Africa, because I think Italy is quite racist. So I can see the point of view on that one. So now they were stuck in a position. They told us that they'd been camped on the border for so long, money's running out, time's running out for them, their desire and morale is running out, appetite for it when they've been living in that camp for so long, degrading every day. So they're getting to the stage of, well, I am going to have to go and hand myself into the French. And I think the reason then they hang on for so long, because that's the question we ask, isn't it? Why you're choosing to live homeless in these camps? Because you can go and hand yourself into the French, and of course they will look after you. So the argument is, well, you don't have to be living in this shithole of a camp. And their reason is, why they're holding on to the very end, is because they really don't want to go back to Greece or Italy. Which again, we can see their point on it, but unfortunately, there's got to be some kind of system in place. I always like to balance things out, and yes, I've said that we met some people who would accredit thoroughly decent people from what we saw. But I have got to temper that with the fact there were a lot of people in the camps that I wouldn't want you under any circumstances. I won't go into the demographics that they were right now. Right, a lot of drugs, drinking, which people will be going, oh, we do that in this country. Yeah, fair enough. But there's a lot of it going on, a lot of violence, living in absolute shit state like animals. I'll take the criticism. If anybody wants to have a dig at me for that, I saw it with my own eyes. Okay, seeing something on a camera or from a second-hand story doesn't do it justice. You know, when you look at people and situations and see it for a week, you can judge people's characters. You can judge the goings on and the habits and behaviours. Yeah, I would say it. There's a lot of people there that I wouldn't want anywhere near my community or family. It's just the way I saw it. But what an amazing experience. We got to spend the night on a doorstep with a lot of Syrian refugees / migrants in northern France. Absolute one-off. And it was classic tramp face. Paul and I, every year we do a tramp face. Before it, we're always just worried that nothing exciting is going to happen. It always does, and it definitely did on this one. Now, I'm willing to bet there's not many bigger topics in the world right now than immigration, especially in the UK, and I'd say just as much, if not more, in the USA, especially with the upcoming elections. But with so much divided opinion and content, angles and agendas, who are we meant to believe when we see things? Let's have a look at who we got, the main players. We got the far left. Now, they will tell you everyone's welcome and everyone's got honest intentions and they're all nice and lovely, and they just want to be like British people. They want to dance around in rose gardens in Somerset, drink afternoon tea, okay, and go to church on Sunday. And there's absolutely no issue with it. It won't put the country under strain. It won't cause tension, and there won't be any problems at all. The far right, they'll tell you that they don't have any issue with people because they're from certain backgrounds, race, ethnicity, but then they'll also burn down hotels and cause riots, which a lot of other people then get tarred with, who don't share those same views. We've got the main media outlets. I think we can all agree that it's their job to have an agenda. It's their job to create division, to post the most extreme angles of each side, show people in the light that they want to show them in. There's no doubt about that. Whether you look at it in a good way or a bad way, that's the industry. As long as we accept that that's the way it is, then we can start dealing with it a lot better. A lot of people don't. They just get too emotional about it. Oh, they're spreading lies, whatever. Yeah, they're unashamed about that. That's their job. So we just need to take that with a pinch of salt. Keep that in mind before we get too enraged with what they're showing us, with the exact purpose to make us argue with other people. But I think we can agree that it's pretty unreliable, the stuff they're saying. The fact that they're showing us what's happening, but there's always an ulterior motive. What's the topic that week? What's going to get us the sales? What's going to get us the exclusive on the story? What's going to create the most anger, emotion, dispute? Or what's the guy above or them above and around telling us is the agenda? The minorities themselves caught in the middle of this argument. They will say that they want to integrate, they don't want any tension, and they don't want to create any divide. But also, they'll start riots and start burning things like the far right. Even if it's just something that's happened to somebody of their same community or religion or somebody said something about it. Next thing you know, it's enraged. There is division and there is violence and anger. And they'll also build insular communities, insular business practices, the politicians. This one's a no-brainer, isn't it? All right, you think the media's got an agenda and it's got someone above telling them what to do because this is our agenda this week, this month, this year, this millennia. Politicians are hand in hand doing the same thing and they can't be trusted. They're turncoats. They're all in on it. The only way to deal with it is try and pick, unfortunately, the best of the bad bunch to try and get what we want for the country. Then you've got the middle. The people who are just bouncing around between the far extremes of the left and the far extremes of the right, getting hammered with all this information and they don't really know what to do with it. A lot of them are scared to voice what they think they believe from the information they're trying to decipher because of political correctness, the gender politics, identity politics that is growing ever increasingly like a burden on everyone's back. Got to watch what you say, got to watch what you do, because you don't want to upset anyone, because you lose your job. It's not just the cancelling of the people who are high up in the media and showbiz, it's cancelling of everyone down to the lowest level, which I've seen in my small business in South Wales. So the people bouncing on the middle are getting even more and more disillusioned, disenfranchised, and there's a thirst for being able to look at it with their own eyes without being told, oh, you have to believe this, you have to say that, this is the correct way to do it. They're looking further now. They're not looking at the main media outlets and the politicians. We're still watching what they say and what's going on. Where's the alternative? Where else can I get some information? And I can make my own mind up. That's really, I think, the core of the country at the minute. You could be in that middle thing and you say the wrong thing and boom, that's it. You're labelled with far right. Any of the other things that get thrown out there. And it's a very hard place to be in. A very frustrating place to be in. So that thirst for reading between the lines and being able to think for yourself is getting massive. Because there's a massive amount of people in that space. And they aren't defined by left and right politics. They're, like I said, they're in the middle. They'll believe a little bit of both. And when it comes to immigration, they are massively getting pressed into you must believe this. So what about these people? They don't want open borders and mass migration, but they also don't want to be burning communities and creating violence. So where do they sit? Concerned, very concerned. And they do want to speak their mind, but they need some facts. They can't just speak their mind and not have something to back it up. Rightfully so, because they will just be an easy target to get labelled something. So we got to go and start finding things for people to make up their own mind. These disillusioned lot in the middle, they need a bit of help, right? We all need a bit of help, but them especially, because they believe, yeah, everyone is welcome if they need help and we can help them and it's not going to put us at a disadvantage or put a massive strain on the things we're already struggling with. But they also understand that there's practical reasons with that. Like I've just said, the strain that it could put. And we can't just go, welcome one, welcome all, let's just open the doors. They're like, well, yeah, we'd love to do that in an ideal world if it worked, but I don't think it is going to work quite that way. There's practical reasons and we need to think about them and we need to talk about them. And the most important thing, we need to be allowed to talk about them without being hammered in your face, being called names. And it's hard because we don't want to go acting on false information, but where do we get the information? Rightfully so, we don't want to just believe everything we're told, but it needs to be credible from a neutral point of view. Everyone's got their own opinion on things, their own maybe slight bits of bias. That's human nature and you're never going to get away from it. It's always going to be something lingering back there in your mind that you can't control saying, I think this. All you got to do is just manage that, to look at it first without that emotion and then make up your mind. It's fine to have that opinion, but also from what you see with your eyes go, well, that wasn't the case in that instance. So to do that, we got to go and look at it ourselves. We got to go and see it with our own eyes, experience it, and we got to film it and we got to talk about it. And then we got to show it to all the other people who can't do that, who haven't got the time on their hands, like me, who could just take off to France and live in a migrant camp. Right, got a few others planned up as well. So we need to help them out and search these things out for ourselves and do it from a point of view with no agenda, no bias from any organisation or any affiliation or any purpose of trying to make it overly one way than the other. Is this where I now tell you to, oh, believe me, what I say is gospel, that's what you should believe and toe the line with? Of course not, because I'll never say that to you. I'll never tell you to just blindly believe what I or anyone says. What I will tell you is that you need to take all emotion out of it to create that conversation. You will get emotional and you will have emotions about it. Nobody's doubting that. But you've also got to try and take that out of it to look at it from that point of view. Because if you don't, you're never going to be able to argue. When you do come to your conclusion and think, right, this is what I think about it now, you're never going to be able to put that across properly because there's going to be too much emotion and it's going to come out and it'll just turn into a back and forth will get nobody anywhere. And I will always try to do that. I ain't perfect, and I'll never tell you that I am. Well, maybe not. Maybe if I've had a few pints and I've given it the big one, I might say it. But I'm not, and I'll always try to put it across in a neutral manner. That's why, bear with me, because there'll be times where I'll be saying something from a point of view that you'll be sat there going, absolutely not. I totally disagree with that. What are you on about? I didn't think you were going to go down that route. It's very likely that not long after that, I'm going to say something that you do agree with. Or not something you agree with, but from an angle that you were siding towards. So bear with it. I'll try and put it from both spins. And that's as much as I can do to help you make your mind up and help me make my mind up, because we're all here learning about it as well. I'm sure you all agree that none of us know all the answers or the solutions. From me going out and doing stuff and reporting back on it, I'm learning as well, 100%. Every time I'm doing it, I'm like, yeah, I never knew that. That's the point of going out. Otherwise, you could just sit there and watch TV and think you knew it all. So while I'm doing it, I'm going to be learning. So with all that said and done, just get into a bit of action, shall we?